Dear Dr. Arnab Das, dear colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting a message from UNESCO for your celebration of World Environment Day at the Maritime Research Center MRC in Pune. It gives me great pleasure to contribute this message on behalf of UNESCO. I wish you a good day to all delegates, specialists, participants and students present at the MRC on the 50th World Environment Day, which was first celebrated globally on the 5th of June in 1974. The host country this year is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the day will be celebrated globally with a thematic focus on land restoration, desertification and drought resilience. Because there is no water or nutrients available for plant life in deserts, this means the ecological primary productivity comes down to almost zero, further implying that there is almost no biomass to supply ecosystem components like the vertebrate and invertebrate fauna with food. Biodiversity loss in desert environments is frequently caused by human and livestock population dynamics that exceed the ecological carrying capacity. This means, in simpler words, that a certain area of desert can only support so many people, camels, goats, and so on. If this threshold is surpassed, irreversible damage will be done to the desert itself. The desert becomes even more of a desert. It becomes even less productive. Then it needs to be restored, and that is difficult and expensive. Therefore, vegetation cover, plant density and diversity are important. The ancient Arab pastoralists knew that. That is why they developed the Hema system, a traditional means by which tribal groups set aside part of their range that protected from grazing and from overgrazing, one of the oldest nature conservation systems that we know. These ancient people knew perfectly well how best to maintain their ecosystems based on their love and respect for their land and the life that it supports. Those of us who have ever experienced living in a desert environment do understand that we must take the greatest care of whatever little life is available. We will also take the greatest care of not being wasteful with the limited fresh water that is available, which is in deserts often brackish or even bitter in taste. In deserts, the few water wells that exist naturally must be maintained with hard labor. They are a lifeline for human living, frequently several meters deep below the surface, with highly limited recharge capacities. UNESCO has, since 1968, warned against the unbridled exploitation of natural resources and developed the World Network of Biosphere Reserves in 1971 as places to test, apply and demonstrate good environmental practices and people living in harmony with nature. Today there are 748 biosphere reserves in more than 130 countries globally. Moreover, UNESCO supports science and education into sustainable human living in a time when we are all exposed to the triple planetary crisis that is characterized by the adverse cumulative impact of biodiversity loss, climate change and pollution. Demystifying one of the misconceptions that we usually have, climate is not just simply the weather. Climate change is the long-term change of atmospheric conditions of our planet, influenced by its chemical and physical parameters and connected to the biosphere, which is the living part of the planet, the cryosphere, which is the ice, the hydrosphere, which is the water, and all of the pedosphere as well, which is the soil. The climate is changing. It has always been changing due to the sun's own dynamics, due to changes in the atmosphere, inconsistencies in the Earth's orbit around the sun, due to magnetic shifts in the Earth axis and the associated shifts in the poles, as well as due to meteorite impacts and massive volcanic eruptions. For some time now, however, 2 new additional factors have been added. Number 1, the widespread deforestation and burning of large areas of forests, which is already going on since 2000 years. The massive burning of fossil fuels and the associated emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. Currently, due to human influence, climate change happens faster than normal, and this is dangerous. It has negative impact on water, energy and food security, as well as human and environmental health. In addition to climate change mitigation efforts, education is an essential element for humanity to be able to deal with climate change globally and locally. If we don't understand climate change and its causes and effects, then we won't be able to react to it in a sensible way. All of us need to understand the basics in climate change, including students and decision makers. UNESCO has produced, in partnership with 10 United Nations agencies, a self-explanatory exhibition called Climate Science Literacy. These materials have been produced in many languages, such as, for example, Chinese, English, German, Spanish and Thai, as well as already in 7 Indian languages. Currently, we are installing these materials as permanent exhibitions in Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka. It is important that every person participates and becomes an environmental steward. It is with this in mind that I encourage everybody to think about how you can participate in thinking globally and acting locally. One idea is to convert the Maritime Research Center MRC itself into a place of environmental sustainability with good waste practices, with some action that supports biodiversity protection, climate protection, and the sustainable use of water resources. Earlier, I talked about terrestrial desert environments. The Maritime Research Center, MRC, of course, deals mostly with issues of coastal, marine, maritime and riverine ecosystems and issues. And it is very clear that the oceans affect the climate and the weather and the climate affects what is happening on land. These things are systematically interconnected. UNESCO and MRC have plans on underwater issues and oceanographic issues, and we are already in the phase of jointly planning for some significant activities to take place this year in 2024 in Pune at MRC. Sustainability must be the new norm globally, and I hope you join us in this endeavor.